It's time to look at Cars mobile games. I've had a lot of requests to look at Cars Fast as Lightning, and when I started doing research for this game, I quickly realized there are actually quite a lot of Cars mobile games and also Cars Java mobile games. And on top of that, there's also some Disney mobile games that the Cars characters are in. So today, here is a complete look at Cars on mobile. This video is going to be broken up into 3 sections, with section 1 being the Java games, section 2 being the base mobile games, and section 3 being the Cars characters appearing in other Disney mobile games. So before I keep waffling, here's the Java Cars games. I already love the music in this game. I've got to say, we're off to quite a positive start. This game is very cool. And you knew I was going to have to put that joke in here somewhere. Anyway, this game was released in 2006 alongside all the other versions of Cars 1. It looks absolutely fantastic, I love the sprite work, the colours are great, and bearing in mind you were playing it on a phone that probably looked like this, it's just very impressive. The controls are a little weird, and when you get used to them though, it's a great time. Not only does this game have racing, but you can free roam around Radiator Springs, which, again, bearing in mind what you're playing it on, is very impressive. So yeah, Cars 1 for Java is pretty cool. Our next game released just 1 year later for Java as well, and that is Cars Radiator Springs 500. There's not quite as much interesting to say about this game, except I think this is a companion to Meta National. There isn't actually much information about these games on the internet, and finding anything was actually quite hard to find. But after digging around for a little bit, I discovered some playable characters, and those playable characters were Otto the Audi, Goodman the Volvo, Emma the rally car, and so on and so forth. All the international races from Meta National were here. This game had all the international races as playable characters, and it also had 15 different courses that you could partake in. So, to be fair, for a little mobile game, especially of its age and the platform it's on, there's quite a lot of content here. Gameplay-wise, it's just a very generic, old-school mobile racing game. It's very similar to kind of Asphalt, but really dumbed down. That's the best way I can summarize this. And again, there's not much more to say about it than that. It has a nice little charm to it of being an old school pixelated game. It's not quite as cutesy and nice to look at as the first Cars Java game, but I think this is still pretty cool. So for our third of the 4 Java Cars games, we have Cars 2, which I have to say has got to be up there with the Cars 2 PSP game for just completely pointless gameplay. There was also a full iOS app release of this game that's a bit different just in terms of how it looks, and we'll get to that later. My god, this is just so boring. Really not what you'd expect looking at the previous 2 games we've already covered. This released in 2011 to tie in with the film release, and like the film, should really be disregarded in terms of discussions, and just forgotten about. This, much more than the film, I'd say. This is one of those games where it really is, it's harmless if you are a child, but as an adult trying to play something with any amount of substance, this is not it. The previous 2 Cars games on Java had something for everyone, but this is definitely just something to give your child to stop them from crying. And then they'll probably just cry afterwards anyway, because they've just had to play this game.
Oh, no, no.
So for our 4th and final Cars Java game, we have Cars Hot Shot Racing, released in 2014 and developed by the good old game development company Gameloft. Ugh. This one kind of reminds me of Cars on the GBA with the gameplay style and how the angles are when you're racing. Nothing inherently wrong with this one, completely fine, harmless really. Graphically, it looks nice, gameplay wise, it's fine. There's not really much more to say about these games, to be honest with you. They all look fairly pretty, except Cars 2. The gameplay's fairly cool, except Cars 2. For the most part, the Cars on Java experience is actually quite a positive one, which is not something you'll hear me say very often about anything. Positivity is not my strong suit. However, Cars 1, Radiator Springs 500, and this are all pretty solid games. Did you guys play any of these games back in the day? Do you still play them now? Have you downloaded them recently and given them a go? Let me know in the comments what you guys think of these, and we will move on to the next section of the video, which are the actual Cars mobile games. Okay, so first up we have a pretty weird title to kick off our mobile games list. This is Cars 2 World Grand Prix Read and Race, which is about as exciting as it sounds. An educational reading experience that covers the story of Cars 2, but only focusing on the World Grand Prix races, rather than the spy side of things. Anyway, you read through the story, and every now and then it's broken up by reader pit stops, where each time you reach one of these you customize your own Grand Prix car. And then when you finish the story, you can select one of your 5 cars and race with them. If your device had it inbuilt, you could tilt your phone or tablet to turn the car, which I guess is pretty cool, but not that exciting really. Another incredible feature of this legendary app was custom car saving. Save and email your favorite designs. How exciting. The bottom line is, much like the Cars 2 Java game, this is definitely something aimed at kids and not intended for adults in any way, shape or form. As you'll probably start getting used to hearing me say, this game has now been delisted as of 2020, so is no longer available unless you already had it downloaded beforehand. Sadly, this game is currently classified as lost media, as most of the files have been lost to time. Recently some have been found, but there's no APK file that works to get the game launched, so currently it is lost. Maybe one day this legendary piece of media will reappear. Okay, so whilst we're on the topic of Cars 2, we may as well cover the Cars 2 iOS app, which is the same as the Java one, but it just looks a little different. Same gameplay style though, completely pointless, boring as anything, and just absolutely cursed. This released in 2011 alongside the film, but compared to its console counterparts only has 5 playable characters, 3 different locations, and as you can probably tell from the gameplay, no actual races, just reach the finish line and earn the stars. It's very, very boring, very pointless, completely mind-numbing, and again, give it to your kid, they might be entertained for 5 minutes. That's all I have to say about Cars 2. That's it. Moving on. Okay, so I think this is the last time now that I have to talk about Cars 2 in any capacity. This is Cars 2 AppMates, an iPad exclusive Toys to Life kind of game. You could buy these little Cars models and then place them on the screen, and then you could play various minigames, race around Radiator Springs and whatnot, but again, definitely aimed at small kids. This released in September 2011, and the toy line obviously released at the same time. Sadly, again, this game was delisted in 2018, and again, is unfortunately lost media. But I don't know if anyone's really in a rush to bring this one back, but we'll see, time will tell. The game had 6 playable characters that you could purchase models for, and that was Lightning, Mater, Finn McMissile, Holly Schiffwell, Francesco, and Shu Todoroki, who is the Japanese race car from the film. The figures looked something like this. They have a certain charm to them, but I must say they're not the greatest models I've ever seen. Moving on to our next game. Okay, so next up we have Cars Daredevil Garage. Now, this is quite an interesting one. Yet another Toys to Life Cars game. It's weird that quite a few of these exist if we're including Disney Infinity as well. This game released in 2015 alongside a new range of Cars diecast models. And these diecasts could be scanned into the game and you'd unlock them in your game to play as, which is a pretty cool way to sell toys, I have to say. Now, personally, I never had too many of the Cars diecasts growing up, as I was more of a Hot Wheels person, but this is very cool, and you can see the Hot Wheels inspired gameplay from the tracks that you build and the star rating system you get from playing them. Whilst not every Cars diecast model ever was compatible with this game, there were quite a lot of them that you could scan in, and the range lasted for a good couple of years. In fact, this game led Pixar to create their own series based around the diecast that they uploaded to YouTube, just called the Diecast series. Now, I'm almost certain you can guess what I'm going to say next. This game was sadly delisted a while ago, and it's unclear exactly when this happened as there's no confirmed reports of this, but people say they remember seeing this game disappear sometime around 2017, others say it's later, but the bottom line is it's gone. although not classified as lost media, so the file is still around somewhere. Okay, so next up we have the game that you've probably requested me to cover most on this channel, and that is Cars Fast as Lightning. This is quite possibly the most mobile game out of every mobile game on this list. Just looking at this gameplay above, you can just tell exactly what kind of game this was. It consisted of two different gameplay styles, and one was the Clash of Clans kind of build your buildings, earn your coins, and the other is of course racing. The racing, whilst fairly simple, has its charm and does do justice to what you see in the films. This game was released in 2014 and again was developed by Gameloft, and this one didn't even last a whole 2 years, being removed in mid-2016. If you have the game downloaded or had downloaded it at any point, you can still play it now, but I believe the game will stop you from going so far as the servers have now shut down. Which is a shame really, because this game does look quite cool, and in all fairness, compared to some of the other games like Clash of Clans, is certainly not the most predatory in terms of pricing and pay to win. Interestingly, this game was released on both Android and iOS, but was also released on the Windows App Store on Windows 8 and 10 computers. That version disappeared even earlier, potentially early 2016, late 2015. This game had a total of 31 characters, 29 of which were actually playable. These varied from the original film to the second film to even a few from the Cars tunes. As well as this, there are also a lot of cool buildings and decorations you could unlock for your customized Radiator Springs. Maybe one day someone will bring this game back with their own custom servers, in the same vein as the Sonic Runners revival or some of those MMO revivals like Toontown Online or Club Penguin Rewritten, stuff like that. That would be pretty cool. Interestingly enough, in the beta for this game, the Cars Racer-Rama main theme was used for this game's main theme, but then they decided to go with an entirely new music track. And on top of this, some of the early designs for the Cars characters can be found online, and they are quite funny to look at, I have to say.
Bet you're here to prove you're the best racer of all, am I right?
Oh, I really hope that's not supposed to be lightning. If it is, that's the worst impression I've heard yet. This is Cars Lightning League, released in June 2017, just 1 month before Cars 3 was released in cinemas. This game was basically just made to promote the film. It doesn't really have much substance to it. The gameplay is very similar to a lot of endless runners like Subway Surfers or Temple Run, except this wasn't endless. You just had to reach a certain objective like the finish line or reach a certain score. You could use points and in-game currency to upgrade your car to do better, and there was a level progression system. But as this was a mobile game, you were limited by how much you could actually play. You had a certain amount of fuel, and after you completed so many levels, that fuel would go down. You could either wait for this to go back up, or you could spend real money to boost yourself back up again. This game had a variety of playable characters, including DJ, part of the Delinquents group from the first film, which was a weird inclusion to advertise for Cars 3 because he's not even in the film, nor are any of the others. Most of the games on this list at least lasted a couple of years, if not more, but this one lasted one. It got delisted in 2018. If you had this, again, you could reinstall it and play it today. The servers are still there, so you can play the game through to completion, but honestly, I don't know why you'd bother. Thankfully, again, the files for this one are floating around out there somewhere, so this is not a lost piece of media.
Paid promotion for Google. Google Home is an audio-only product.
Should we race with Lightning McQueen?
Sure. Hey Google, play Cars Adventure.
All right, getting Cars Adventure.
Hey there! The name's Lightning McQueen, and this is my buddy Mater.
Well, hey there!
So for our final game of this section, it's a bit of a weird one. It's not so much a mobile app, but it doesn't really have any other category to belong to. This was a kind of application for Google Home devices, in that it was just audio, there was no actual screen to look at. You simply had to ask your Google Assistant or Google Home to play Cars Adventure, and it was just an audio adventure. That's kind of it. Nothing really exciting at all. And on top of that, again, it's already been delisted, so never mind. Okay, so for our final section of this video, we're going to be covering a few games where the Cars characters have appeared in different Disney mobile games. Our first game is probably the most boring, which is Disney Emoji Blitz, which sounds just about as mind-numbing as you could possibly imagine that it is. There's really not much to say about this game. It's a match puzzle game. There's literally so many of these across the app stores. If you can think of a brand, the chances are there probably is a match 3 puzzle game out there for them somewhere. including Pokemon, Marvel, DC, so on and so forth. There's so many of these things, it's awful. There's even one for Forza. It's just ridiculous. Incredibly, this game actually hasn't been delisted and is still getting updates to this day, with a recent update for the recently released Inside Out 2. Our next game is Disney Tsum Tsum. I hope I've pronounced that correctly, but the bottom line is, it's not that exciting again, I'm afraid. This is once again another match puzzle game, but this time based on the Tsum Tsum line of toys, where the Cars characters had a few releases. They were basically just a line of plush toys. Once again, this game is still available to download today, which doesn't surprise me at all. Just the most simplistic, boring, brain rot gameplay you can possibly imagine, but it's what you'd expect from a Disney licensed puzzle game, so... Our final game is a little bit more interesting. There's this weird thing going on every now and then where brands see well-known games like Tiny Tower or Hill Climb Racing, and they either collab with the developer or just make their own version. Like there's a Lego Tiny Tower, Lego Hill Climb Adventures, Disney did their own My Singing Monsters but did My Singing Muppets, and then this is where we get to Disney Crossy Road, which is, as you can probably imagine, Crossy Road with Disney characters. And this game eventually got a Cars update. And in all fairness, the characters they added in the game look really cool. The art style is quite cool for the characters. They've even got a lovely Crossy Road chick Hicks. Sadly, this game was delisted in 2020, most likely down to licensing, but we'll never actually know why. If you still have this game downloaded or have downloaded it, you can still reinstall it today. Weirdly, out of every game on this list, Disney Crossy Road is the only one that I actually downloaded and can still reinstall today, and I'm going to play it later. Anyway, that takes us to the end of our look at Cars through mobile games. What do you guys think of these games? Have you played any of them? If you have, which ones? Let me know. And then whilst you're at it, please leave a like on the video, subscribe and tap the bell for notifications for future uploads. And thank you very much for watching. I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.